Hi there, thanks for joining me today. My name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from the UK. I've recently been asked to join the Global Video Hop group. So this is my first video, so I'm hoping you're going to like it. This month is all about one sheet wonders. So if you're not aware what that is, it's where you have a piece of paper which you can decorate and design yourself, or you can use our lovely designer series paper and you chop it up into pieces to create your projects basically in a real simple form. So I'm going to be using the Light in the Way stamp set today, along with some of the coordinating dies in the actual project itself. This is carrying over into the new annual catalogue, which I was delighted to hear because I hadn't really had a great chance to play with it really, so it's a really good opportunity for me today. So I'm going to be using just a plain white, it's just our basic white cardstock, and I'm going to be using a collection of the stamps. So I'm going to be using 3 of the little Fireflies, so they come in 3 different sizes. And I'm also going to be using 2 of the dots, which sort of light up their little bottoms, so quite cute. So that's what I'm going to be using initially, and then I will be using some other techniques as we go as well, just to give you an idea of the sort of thing you can do just to sort of step it up a little bit. So I'm going to be using black memento, and I'm also going to be using only 2 other colours, which are to be crushed curry and pumpkin pie. So this is going to be all quite tonal, but that's how I wanted to present these actual projects. So I'm going to be using memento only because I prefer, I think it gives a really nice detailed sort of image. But you can use any other ink you wanted really. So I'm just going to use, as I say, memento, and I'm going to stamp some of these Fireflies just randomly across my page. Now it's really difficult to not get into some kind of uniform way of stamping when you're doing this. As hard as you try, sometimes it's really hard just to remove yourself from following some kind of pattern, but really try. And what we want to do is to have all these little Fireflies at different angles. We also want to be able to fill in some gaps, so we're going to use the smaller ones to do that. Also stamp off the page, because that's really important to give you a proper finish, because if you try and get everything within the page, it looks too what's the word, too organised. It looks like it's not very natural, whereas if you go off the page, then it's quite a natural finish to it. So if you buy something like gift wrap, for example, that will always go off the edge of the page, because that is just the way it's printed, and it just makes it look that finished look to it. So I'm trying not to be too uniform. I can see already I'm sort of trying to follow a pattern, but it just sort of happens. You can't, your eye just naturally wants to go in certain places, but just try and be as random as you can, and just leave sort of a similar gap around really. So now that I've done the largest one, I'm going to come in with the next size down. And again, I'm going to do some little random ones. I'm going to also use the small one, remember, so I don't want to have just this size everywhere. I do want it to be sort of all over the place really. So try and also angle, if you're doing something that's quite random, you want to angle them at different levels and different ways, because otherwise, again, they all look a bit uniform. So just try and sort of, and especially with something like these Fireflies, because they'd be flying through the air and they'd be all over the place. So just try and get them as random as you can. Okay, and then finally I'm going to go in with the small one. So again, I'll probably have a few more of these because they are small. So if you were doing something like flowers, you might also want to sort of overlap them a little bit. But I'm purposely not overlapping these because of the other techniques I'm going to incorporate into my project in a short while. So I'm just going to keep stamping. Don't worry, I can see I've got caught the edge of my stamp there. It's because I'm getting quicker and not concentrating. Don't worry if that happens, because it's so random that you're going to lose a lot of the those sort of things within the project. So don't panic too much. Oops, and again, can you see? But honestly, don't worry about that. It's really not going to matter. It's because I'm trying to do it at speed without really sort of taking too much care. Okay, well, I think I'm quite happy with that for now. I might go back to it and add some more later if I need to. You'll see what I mean as you go through. And I'm going to use crushed curry this time, and I'm going to go with the bigger circle, and I'm going to light up his bottom. Now you're just going to go over that end. And again, don't worry too much. They don't all have to be absolutely precise. They're just adding that nice little colour. This is such a lovely little set. Especially the little lantern in the dies. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is also where, like I'm doing all of these in the same colour, but you can guarantee I'll probably miss one or two as I go through. But I'm just working my way around them. Okay. Don't think I've missed any. Fingers crossed. So now I'm going to take the slightly smaller one, and I'm going to go over the medium sized. So the small ones I'm going to leave. I'm not going to put any crushed curry on those. They're just literally just on the medium ones here. Okay, I don't think I've missed any. No, I think we're good. Okay, let's say you often go back later and you think, oh, I missed that one there. So this is the basis of my one sheet wonder. So these are all about layers, and they're all about creating sort of some textures and things like that. Now, when I say textures, I don't physically mean a texture, but something that looks like it has got a texture to it. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more colour, and I'm going along that circles theme again. So all I've done is taken a circle from just a scrap piece of card, and you can use anything you've got that cuts a circle basically. So if you've got any circle dies, they're fine, or punches are fine, whatever you've got basically. And I'm going to be using crushed curry again, and this time pumpkin pie, just to bring in some contrast really to the circles that I'm going to create. So I'm just going to randomly pick an area. It doesn't have to be a full circle. I'm going to go off the page here a little bit. And I'm going to pick up, first of all, some crushed curry ink onto my blender brush. And I'm going to work it in from the outside into the middle. And I might not go all the way into the middle. I'll see how I feel. And you can just build up that colour. Don't worry if it goes a little bit patchy. As you add more colour, it will come good. But even if it is a little bit patchy, it really doesn't matter on this, because it's all about those textures, okay? So now I've got a little bit of pumpkin pie. Try not to move that if you can help it. And I'll just bring in the pumpkin pie in just to darken those edges. I could, if I wanted, use some more of the crushed curry. That would be fine too. But I quite like the two colours. I think it sort of really makes this project pop really. And you can go as light or as dark as you want basically. So can you see there I've got my first circle. I have left that little piece there. Again, if you want to fill the whole circle, you can. I could quickly, easily go over that now if I wanted to. You can see, again, all that colour brought into it. Okay, so I'm going to do some more circles. So I always start with the lighter colour, which of course is in this case is the crush curry. As I say, don't worry if it's not a complete covering of the colour. It's all about textures and about sort of shading and things like that. So now I'm going to take pumpkin pie. And this is where you'll start to lose any little marks that you may have made. Okay, so I'm just going to continue now until I'm happy that I've got a few of these circles. Now, of course, you don't have to use circles if you don't want to. You can use basically anything you want to. So if you like squares or triangles, or try not to move it like I've just done there. Sometimes it's when it's on the edge it does that. Just need to make sure you try and hold it as tight as you can. You could tape it down if you wanted to. I tend not to, because sometimes, unless you've got a really low tack tape, it can lift part of the covering of the actual paper. So I try not to use tape if I can help it, and just try and use my hands. And you can see, even though that moves slightly, it's so minor you're not going to see it. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with some more. You could also, as well, if you wanted to, use different sizes of circles. So I'm just using one today, but of course you could use 2 or 3 different sizes if you wanted to. When I was initially designing with this, I did use 2 or 3 different sizes, and then I actually preferred just the larger one, which I could cut into as I was going round. But it's all personal choice, and it's all playing as well. It's always good to have a good play. Okay, so we're nearly there. I'm just going to do a couple more over this side. As you get more ink onto your brushes as well, you can kind of be a little bit more heavy-handed with it. It's just when you're building up the ink on your brushes, sometimes it can get a tiny bit patchy, and that's when it's best just to start off as light as you can. Okay, and I think I'm just going to do this tiny little corner up here, and then I will call that a day as far as the blending goes. Okay, so I'll just clear my ink pads. So as I say, it's all about layers, and it's about adding those textured layers as well. So it's kind of a really good fun thing to do. And I love ink. Sorry, beg your pardon. I forgot to get myself a kitchen roll. There's always something, isn't there? So it's always about adding those textures and making them just look really, so they pop off the paper. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to now create some more texture by adding some water splatters. This again is one of my favourite things because I love the way that inks and water react with each other. So it's just plain water, and I've just got a normal paintbrush here. It's quite a large paintbrush, and I'm just getting some water, and I'm going to tap, especially over my circles that I've just made. And I don't want too much, I just want a few spots on each of them. And don't worry if it goes over the edges, that's all part of it. And what I'm going to do, I've just done sort of 3 there. Just going to get a piece of kitchen roll and just blot it quickly. So can you see it's bringing in these lovely sort of water splats, but by sort of drying them quite quickly, it doesn't give them too much opportunity to spread too much. So you can just lift that colour straight off your page. Plus it stops your page from getting too wet because we don't want it to get too wet. So I just love the way water and ink sort of gives you that sort of, it's really sort of pulling through the crushed curry colour underneath, and it's just making that a little bit more interesting. Okay, so one more thing I want to do to add even more interest to it, I'm just taking a clear block, and I have got just one of our Stampin' Right markers, and this is just basic black. I'm just going to scribble some onto a block. You could use Memento if you wanted to, doesn't really matter. And I'm going to get the same brush and some water and just mix this up into a bit of a gloop. And I'm going to do the same again, but this time I'm just tapping lightly all over my page. And all this is doing is just adding some really nice little splatters. And again, you could do this in multiple colours if you wanted to. So you could add some of the pumpkin pie or something if you wanted to. But I wanted this to be quite monotone, so I just left it with the black at this stage. Now, splattering obviously does create a little bit of a mess. So just bear that in mind if you've got any projects sitting around in splatting distance. Just move those out of the way. Okay, so that is how I created my one sheet wonder. If you wanted to add more detail to it, you could. If you wanted to add more colours to it, you could. If you wanted a fuller pattern, especially if you're using flowers, sometimes it's really nice to sort of bring all the flowers together in different colours and overlap them and kind of make them. But I wanted this to be quite a simple sort of background. So then I'm going to show you what I made with my sheet. So I'm going to bring in a sheet here. So basically, there are numerous sheets on the internet where you can get cutting guides for cutting your sheets. So whether you be in the UK and use metric measurements, or whether you use imperial measurements and have imperial size paper, there are some templates out there for everybody. So they're readily available. I tend not to use them because I tend to just go with the flow, but I've just done a quick sort of mock-up sheet really, so I can show you my projects and how I did those. So I tend to always start off cutting mine into 4 pieces. So these would be 14.85 by 10.5 centimetres. And I nearly always start off with one that's completely on its own. So if I bring my first card through, so it's really simple, just a really simple block, and then I have just mounted it on some pumpkin pie cardstock and added some little ribbon and a little sentiment. So really simple, basic card, but really sort of shows off that DSP that you've just created and shows how pretty it is. Now, obviously this section that I've cut off here is quite a lot smaller than this big section here. So you do get little offcuts. So I don't waste those offcuts. I use them inside my cards because it pulls that design into your cards, and it is a good way to use up all your scraps. In fact, I've saved what I've got left of my A4 sheet just to show you how it works. So that's number 1. Okay, I then started off with number 2 and 3. So I didn't measure this, by the way. I literally just took a trimmer and just cut across. So this depth here is different to this depth, and I literally just cut it across. So let's start with number 2. So this is number 2, so this is this piece here, and again it's trimmed down slightly. I've incorporated in an embossing folder here the beautiful dies that come with this Light in the Way stamp set, and another little firefly on there. So number 3 is this section here. So this time I turned it round. So I've gone for more of a landscape. Excuse me, I've had a horrible cold. So I've got more of a landscape sort of card this time. So again, I've used the border dies here, which are really cute and really useful for this card. Actually, when I actually cut and scored it, I'd obviously pinched a bit off the side, so rather than waste it, I made a feature of it. So this is why we've got this border die here. And I'm going to open this one up, and I've used a strip of the card, as you can see in here, just to finish it off. It just pulls everything together and makes them look really like they should be together. And I don't think I showed you the inside of this one. So again, just a strip of the paper. Don't waste it. There's no point in wasting it. You might as well bring it into your designs, and it makes a really nice sort of set. Okay, so let's move on to number 4. So number 4, I cut some stripes. Okay, so I wanted to create a card that had some vertical stripes on it rather than horizontal, and I just created one of the flying seagull cards that are doing the rounds at the moment. So this is a really simple design. I've used obviously the 2 strips here and a couple of little strips down there. Added this little firefly. These are some of the stamps as well from the set. So again, really simple, but they just all pull together. And again, I've got this bit, this strip in the middle is spare, so I can use that on something else. Okay, so then we move on to number 5 and 6. So I wanted to create some windows. So I've cut these out of the front. So again, this is like a whole sheet almost, and I've cut out these windows so it brings through that colour underneath. And then, of course, I have got the actual window pieces here. So again, I've done some stamping in the background, and I've just put these onto dimensionals just to raise them up a little bit, just to create our overall finish. So if I lay those out for you, let's move that away. And you can see all of the cards just made with that one stamp set. Now I've been quite generous actually with some of my pieces on here, and I've used quite big sections, so you could get a lot more out of just one sheet if you wanted to. It's just the cards I was making, that's the way I was incorporating them. So feel free to cut them as much as you like. That's how they come together. So I promised that I would show you how much I had left of my whole A4 sheet. So this is using up all the bits and pieces on the insides as well, and this is basically what I was left with. So not a great deal. I could possibly incorporate this one into something else. I don't know. There's not a lot there to play with, but that is literally all I had left of my A4 sheet when I'd finished. So it's a really, really good fun technique. It's simple. You can play, you can add textures, you can add, you could add things like our paste and all sorts of things. And Wink Stella on here would look lovely because it would give it that little sparkle. Wink Stella would also make the ink run, so just bear that in mind. But I just think it really sort of brings out all those beautiful colours and just makes some really simple cards. So I hope you like that today. I hope that I've done them justice on the blog hop, or the video hop, I should say. And I very much look forward to the next one, and hope you do too. So take care. Bye.